Somebody thought that they were in a position of higher authority than you. Somebody thought they were more powerful and smarter, more intelligent, that they could outwit and outsmart you, but they could not outwit and outsmart God. They were not more powerful than God. And the Holy Spirit said, I am wiping that smug smile off your enemy's face. Hello, warrior. It's Bella Bashan here. Welcome back to my channel. This word was placed in my spirit over the last week, and it comes from several different things that the Holy Spirit has been showing me. The first way the Holy Spirit showed me this is I had a vision that I saw. It was like in the vision, all I saw was these hands, and I just saw all these hands just like meddling around. The vision was that somebody's been meddling in your affairs, and I feel like this is somebody who has been, this could be somebody who has been starting a smear campaign. This could be somebody that has been just for no reason targeting you. And one of the confirmations on this word that I had, and by the way, we know from Ephesians 6 that we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities seated in high places. The enemy has possibly been using someone who has been targeting you, a wicked person who has been smear campaigning and doing what they can, maybe spiritually. When I see hands meddling around in the spirit, this is more than just something done in the physical, which I saw these hands. It was like I saw them getting tarot readings. And so somebody may have been consulting a medium, trying to get a look into your life, invading your privacy in that way, and trying to destroy whatever it is that you're working on through psychic attacks, witchcraft, or whatever it is, just wishing you unwell. And one of the ways in which I saw this again was I found this show called Smug. And in this show, the very first episode, which this show I found on Amazon Prime, and the first episode was free. So I watched this first episode from the show Smug. And that's where I got the title of this, possibly the title of this word is that God is wiping the smug smile off somebody's face. But in this show, it was about people who just try and do just absolutely mind-boggling things against other people, which sometimes it's so interesting to watch these kind of shows to me, because I actually almost forget how wicked some people can be. And it's not like something we want to focus on, but it is a good reminder that this is the type of people that we are praying to be guarded against, that there are wicked people in this world that do crazy things and target people for no apparent reason. And so in this show, I'll start with the woman that got targeted. She was a regular woman who worked at an elementary school, who volunteered, who was on the PTA. And this all took place in the United States, in California, in the city of Irvine, which is a very wealthy city where a lot of startup companies are going. And so I actually lived in Irvine when I was a little child, so I remember. And in this community, it's supposedly a very safe community, and all the kids usually walk to school or ride their bikes, which that's what I did when I lived in Irvine when I was a child. I remember walking to school. And so, but anyway, the other woman was a very well-known woman in the community, known to be very wealthy. Her husband was an attorney, And I believe she also was an attorney, or they were considered, they considered themselves to be very prestigious, very educated, very powerful, and smart because of their education and because of their money. And so one day, this woman was dropping her child off. She was picking her child up from school, and the volunteer woman, she was walking the kids from the class and helping them get situated with the parents. And she said she would take them out. Sometimes other kids would hang around in the school and help clean up or do whatever. And she said that this woman's little boy was doing that. And so she would lock the door behind herself. And if a kid was inside, they would have to wait for her to come back to walk them back out to their parents for safety reasons. And so when the mother arrived to pick up her son, he was not out there, and instead he was throwing a tantrum, beating out the door and crying, which actually speaks to me to the instability of the child to throw that kind of a tantrum over, a door being locked, something that I feel that the child probably had experienced before. And so, because this woman saw her child freaking out, she immediately went to blame the PTA woman who was the volunteer. And the woman said, your child was slow in coming out. And the other woman took it as she was calling her child slow. And so, long story short, this woman, this blonde woman who thought she was so powerful and educated, which nothing against blonde women. I've been blonde haired many times before myself, but she just was really had herself in this category, I guess you could say, of prestige. So, but anyway, she proceeded to ruin this other woman's life. And in the end, the big thing that she tried to do was they planted drugs in the back seat of this woman's car while she was at the school. And then the attorney, who thought he was smooth because he was an attorney, he thought he knew how to get away with a crime, which he made a YouTube video of reading a book about, if you knew how to commit the perfect crime, would you do it? Another piece of evidence that ended up going up against him. But he called the cops, saying that he saw this woman like taking pills and doing drugs in her car. So the police went to the school, and they proceeded to go find the woman and tell her what they had, the call that they had gotten. And she went to her car and she was like, yeah, go ahead, search my car, and they opened it up, and then they found all the drugs or whatever that were falsely placed in her car. And so basically this story was just, it was just very confirming to the meddling hands, how these people were offended for no reason, basically. And which, by the way, the woman actually was, she was just a very rotten woman. She was having an affair on her husband, and it was just a mess of a thing. And her husband, to me, through my eyes, were miserable regardless of their education, their prestige, where they lived in the world, and they needed an outlet to free some of their misery. And so again, they targeted this woman. But it's these meddling hands and being targeted that was the confirmation of this story, and the fact that there are people out there who are wicked and target people for no reason. But in the end, they were caught and their lives were put to shambles because they were not as smart as they thought they were. Their crime had holes in it. They were, the police and the detectives were able to figure out through some means, I can't remember exactly what it was, that the the ones that had committed the crime. They were not masterminds like they thought they were. They were not more powerful than God. And so God was watching over this woman who was targeted for no reason. But the story that the Holy Spirit is bringing me to is a story of Esther, where Haman was actually targeting the Jews for no reason whatsoever. He had a smugness about him and was ready to commit a major crime to take out a whole community of people for no reason. And here in Esther 4 verse 9 it says, "Then Haman went forth the day with joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate that stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai." So somebody has just been indignant with you for no reason, or has they have an indignant spirit about you there for whatever reason, and so they're targeting you. And Haman was a very braggadocious, very self-righteous, smug type of person again. And so in verse 11 it says, "And Haman told them the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things where the king had promoted him and had advanced him above the princes and the servants and the king." So there we see Haman bragging around. But then in Esther 6 verse 10 it says, "And Esther said, the adversary, the enemy, is this wicked Haman. And Haman was afraid before the king and the queen." So then, if you guys don't know the story of Esther, Esther was an orphan who was eventually found favor in the sight of a king and ended up marrying a king. And her uncle Mordecai, they were both Jews and undercover Jews because they knew Haman hated them. And so Haman actually confessed in front of Esther what he was going to do to the Jews, his plans to take them out. So Esther went and fasted and prayed, and she and Mordecai made a plan for her to approach the king and let her know that Haman was very, very wicked. And so again, Haman was afraid before the king and queen. And so the Holy Spirit wants you to know that God is wiping the smug smile off somebody's face, somebody who thought that they were a mastermind, so powerful, these meddling hands meddling around in your affairs. Somebody thought they could scatter everything, all the blessings in your life around, or take you out of a position somehow. And what happened is the very exact punishment that Haman was planning for the Jews happened to him. And it says in Esther 6 verse 10, it says, "So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified." The very same thing that Haman meant to happen to the other people happened to him. That was the same thing that happened in that Smug Shot show that I watched. The people, they ended up doing jail time and their lives were ruined. The husband could no longer practice law again, and their reputations were ruined as well. And so whoever's been doing the smear campaign or these meddling hands meddling around in your affairs, the Holy Spirit wants you to know, this is the main part I feel like the Holy Spirit really wants us to know, is that you are going to wax greater and greater and continue to do great things, that a time of celebration is at hand. All this mess, the spiritual warfare that whomever this meddling hands has been trying to bring into your life, again, the Holy Spirit is putting it to an end. And one of the things we need to remember too is that part of this, the way this came to an end, was through Esther's fasting and prayer. And so if you have not been fasting and praying, I know I talk about fasting a lot, but if you really do have somebody meddling around in your affairs spiritually, and you have experienced this spiritual meddling of being targeted, then it really does take prayer and fasting to break this off of you. And so I just wanted to make that point. But it says in Esther 9 verse 4, for Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went through all the provinces. For the man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. And then it was a time of celebration for the Jews, a time of feasting and joy and gladness. So after the prayer and after the fasting came a season of waxing greater and greater, a season of great success where God took Mordecai to a place of being very well known, a place of being very well respected amongst his people. That is what is coming your way in Jesus' name. You are going to wax greater and greater and do great things. And the smug people, the smug person who has been targeting you, the enemy is getting the smug smile wiped off their face, and the very same intention that they had for you is being done to them. So I hope this word brought some peace into your spirit. Give it a thumbs up if it resonated. Subscribe to see more videos, and I'll talk to you again later. God bless you.